In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this. What's up, my producer friends? It's David with another monsterproductions.com. So a few months ago, I had a request to do a future bounce, lead, and bass sound design tutorial. I'm not going to attempt to say your name because I'm pretty sure I would say it wrong, but I appreciate the suggestion and I hope you're still subscribed to the channel and stuck around and this tutorial is helpful for you. Now, part of the problem with doing a future bounce sound design tutorial, specifically for like a lead or a bass, is in this genre, I'd say probably more so than a lot of other dance music genres. Generally, you're going to be layering a ton of different lead sounds on top of each other to get this sort of really big lead sound that we're going for. And that can go for basses too. But what I'm actually going to do with this tutorial is something a little bit different than my normal sound design tutorials. I actually created this patcher preset here, which I'm going to be giving away in the description of this video, as well as I'm going to be giving away all my GMS presets, which I used a handful of GMS presets to create this patcher plugin / preset, and then also in some of the other sounds that I used in this tutorial as well. So I'm going to be going over this patcher preset, how I put this all together, some of the sounds that I used, and then I'm actually going to take this tutorial a step further. I'm going to show you how I put together the drums, maybe a little bit of the processing, and my thought process behind the chords and the melody and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. Now, the first thing that I want to do is go ahead and go over this plugin here and show you how I put it together and how it works. And that way you guys can just download it. And if you want to just skip the rest of this tutorial, you'll know how to use this guy. So if you go into the map section, you can see all the different plugins that I have going on here. So basically what I have going on is a flex and then 3 different GMSs, and these are all stacked on top of each other. They're all routed through 2 fruity balances. And the reason why I did this is so that I could control the volume on the surface. So the first fruity balance is linked to this button here, and you can just turn it off or on. So you can very easily get rid of everything except for, let's say, the brass. Now the second fruity balance is linked to these faders here, and this is an actual mix fader, so you can control how much of a certain element is being mixed together. And then we have these other knobs up here. We have an OTT, we have a sidechain, we have a distortion, and we have a filter. So how I did the sidechain was through gross beat. I basically went to the sidechain preset here, and then I just sort of tweaked it a little bit to give it this sort of sidechain effect. So if you don't have gross beat, I'm not 100% sure if that'll still work or not, but you can always do your own sidechain. Not really a big deal. I also have it run through Destructor, which looks like this, and part of it is linked through the distortion and the other one is linked to the filter. So that is what this knob is here, distortion, and then this knob is the filter. So the distortion. And then the filter. So that's really all you need to know about the plugin in order to actually use it. But I'm going to go ahead and dive in here and explain a little bit more about how this plugin kind of works and how it's routed. So first of all, if you right click, you can add a plugin, whatever plugin you want, whether it's a generator or an effects plugin. And then by default, it will automatically link from FL Studio to the plugin, and then it'll route it to the out FL Studio to FL Studio. So then you have these yellow lines which are sort of connecting the different plugins together. So you can take things off like that and connect them to different plugins like that. So if you wanted to, you could potentially add your own effects plugins in this and get even more creative, get even more crazy. So as you can see, for example, this flex is going into the fruity balance is going into this fruity balance is going into the OTT. The same goes with these 3 here. They're all going into the OTT, which is controlled on the surface. The OTT is going to the EQ. All I have on the EQ is this low shelf, and it's getting rid of some of the lower frequencies all the way up to about 100 hertz, and I'm just trying to make room for the bass there. Then the EQ goes into the gross beat, which is the sidechain. The gross beat goes into the destructor, which is our distortion and our filter. and then the destructor goes out to FL Studio. So that's how everything's kind of linked together. Now these red things up here in the lines, this is the surface control. So these are actually linked to different parameters within these plugins, and that's how I created this part. So that's sort of the brief overview of how to use Patcher. If you're still a little bit confused, I did do a video where I created a preset from scratch using Patcher, and I went into a little bit more detail about how it all works. So if you're interested in checking out that video, I'll be sure to leave a link in the description as well as on the screen now if you're confused and you want to learn more about that. Now, as far as the actual presets themselves that I used here, on Flex, I used this preset called Future Trumpet. It's in this pack here, and I didn't really do anything to it. Now, of course, I do have OTT and distortion on it, so it's going to sound a little bit fatter than it normally would, but that's pretty much the basic preset there. Now, the first GMS that I used is a preset that I created. As I mentioned, this is going to be a free download in the description if you want to download the pack. So if you go to presets, go to Another Monster GMS Essentials, and then go to Dance Essentials, it's going to be this lead, Big Room lead. So this is the preset that I used. And then I tweaked it slightly. So what I actually did here, I brought down the cutoff to probably about 90% or so. I think I brought down the decay a little bit. Maybe 19% or so. And then I also messed with the attack, decay, sustain, and release here a little bit. So I think I probably brought the sustain down. So probably right around there is about, where I had it. And again, the reason why I did this was to just give it a little bit more of that plucky sound that you're going to hear in a lot of future bounce. Now, if you're really confused what I just did, and you're pretty much like brand new to sound design, I did do an introduction to synthesis and sound design series a while ago, and that's going to cover all the basics and all the fundamentals of sound design that you need to know. It's right here on YouTube. I'll just leave a link in the description or on the screen now if you guys want to check that out. But just a quick recap, in order to get sort of this plucky sound that I'm talking about, all you have to do is mess with the attack, decay, sustain, and release. Or in this particular synth, there's also an envelope section which is linked to the filter, which is also what I was messing with. Anyway, moving on, the second GMS here that you see is another preset that I used. Now this GMS is our beef. So that was the main synth that we were just talking about there before. And now I'm gonna click beef. This one sounds like this by itself. So this one was actually a respace that I pitched up. So I do have a video on how I made this, I'm pretty sure this specific respace in GMS. So again, I'll try and leave a link in the description and also on the screen now if you guys want to check that out. But basically, if you go into the pack, go down to presets, go to Another Monster GMS Essentials, go down to Dance Essentials, and then go to Let's Get Reached 1. This is the sound. So what I did was I pitched this up an octave. And then I brought the frequency slide down to about 40%. And then I just added a little bit of reverb. So if you click glue here, it'll add some reverb. So right about there is what I did to sort of get that sound. So the last GMS that I used was for the bass. And this particular bass preset that I used was actually an 808 that I had created. So I kind of included this in this preset just as an option, and I think it works pretty well. But generally, as far as basses go for future bounce, it's going to have, again, more of that plucky sound that I've been talking about. So on the surface, I do give you the ability to turn this on or off. And you can potentially add your own basses there. But in case you're curious, the preset that I used was in GMS Essentials, Hip Hop Essentials, and then Super Nasty 808. And then I just pitched this down another octave by clicking this button here. All right, so that's enough about that. I hope you guys like this Patcher preset that I made. Let's go ahead and move on to the chords. So I'm gonna solo this here. So these are what the chord stacks look like on my piano roll. I'm not really going to touch on the music theory and like exactly what chords these are, but if you want to, pause the video and kind of figure it out, that's fine. One characteristic that I do want to mention, which is sort of a big thing that I added on this, was this line here, this note. So it's happening actually a little bit before the downbeat. So if I were to put the metronome on, you can kind of hear. So you can hear that note hits right before the beat, and that really adds to the sort of bounciness of this chord progression and of the melody. Now, as far as the sound that I used, again, I used another one of the presets that I made. This one is called Big Room Chords 2. It's in my Dance Essentials. It's down here, Big Room Chords 2. And then I tweaked it slightly. So I probably, again, messed a little bit with the attack, decay, sustain, release here, and probably with the envelope as well. Now, I don't want to take up too much time talking about how I made this sound, so I recommend, if you get these presets, take a look at how I put this together. You can kind of reverse engineer it, but the main sort of sound that you're hearing is the combination of the square and the saws. And then of course we have some reverb and delay on there as well. Now, as far as the lead goes, this is what it actually looks like in the piano roll. I just plotted this out, and actually originally I didn't have this little bit. I kind of added that on later, but originally what I actually had was this. Now, another thing that I was experimenting with this in this melody was trying to figure out the perfect length on these. So you notice, some of these are longer than others. And this was just, me experimenting, tweaking them, trying to find where it just sounded the best to me, where it sounded the bounciest. So again, just something else to think about. Okay, so let's talk about the drums. Drums are very basic here. We have our kick, which is your stereotypical 4 to the floor kick pattern. So this is a kick sample from Cymatics. It was in the key of G, and I actually tuned it down to be in the key of F, which is what I'm currently in. So I did bring the pitch down a little, got rid of some of the clickiness. So I brought it into my mixer, and I just added this EQ here. So I'm adding a little boost around 3K hertz. That's 4.1 dBs. And then I'm also adding a high shelf here. So this high shelf is at about 6.3K hertz, and I'm turning it up about 1.7 dBs. So again, I'm just getting some of that high end back in the kick, and then I'm also getting rid of some of this low end here. So I have this low shelf. This kick sounded a little bit bass heavy to me, and this is a technique that you can do if your goal is to try and get things really loud, because some of those lower frequencies take up a lot of headroom. So let me play this just so you can kind of see what's going on the EQ curve here. So aside from EQ, I'm not doing anything with this kick, no compression, nothing like that. Although if this were an actual track that I was working on, I may want to experiment with trying to add some compression on it. So we have a percussion and snare sample here. I also added this snap sample, which I added some reverb on, and then I added this little sweep up effect. There's an automation clip just automating the volume. So that sounds like this. So just to make it a little bit more interesting, and then I added this tom fill too. And one thing that I did here was on this channel rack, I have the swing turned up to 50%, and that's part of the reason why you're getting this really swingy sounding tom fill there. So that's it for the first half of the drop on the drums. Second half of the drop, the cymbals and hi-hats come in. I have a little fill down here, so that all sounds like this. So hi-hats, I have a little hi-hat loop that I found combined with this hi-hat here, which is actually, I believe it was a stock FL Studio hi-hat. So it's called GRV-OH05. If you have FL Studio, you have that hi-hat. And then as far as processing goes, I added a little bit of isotope vinyl, and I just brought up the wear a tiny bit. I'm at like 16%. And the reason for that was just to get rid of a little bit of the brightness of the hi-hat. It just felt a little bit too bright for me. And then I also have some white noise and crashes. And then we also have a sweep up with the white noise. And that's really about it. I did do a little bit of automation here, nothing too crazy, but I did do a filter effect here with the chords. which is just a destructor here, and then it's automating this filter. I also automated the volume of all these synths here to cut off for a second on this kick. So this kick is by itself, and then it comes back in half a beat later to give it, again, a little bit more variation in the melody, and then also a little bit extra bounce. So little tricks like that can, make things more interesting. And then as far as the melody goes, I did do this little fill here in that gap where I didn't add these swells. And then again, I switched up the fill on this one. Kind of keep it moving, keep it interesting. Oh, and then I also added a filter effect on the melody right here. It just kind of, again, it's the destructor and it's just filtering out the frequencies. So yeah, that's about it. I hope this video was inspiring and helpful. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you liked it, be sure to hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Don't forget to hit the bell notification. That's going to let you know anytime I release videos in the future. Right now, I'm doing tutorials about once a week, and those usually come out on Friday or Saturday. So keep an eye out for that. If you have any questions about anything or tutorial requests, feel free to hit me up on Instagram at anothermonster1. Also, if you feel like you're really struggling with music production, sound design, anything in between, and you feel like you just need a little bit of extra help, I am doing one-on-one private lessons, which you can sign up for on my website at anothermonsterproductions.com. I'll be sure to leave a link in the description of this video if you guys want to sign up for that. And while you're there, be sure to take advantage of the free stuff I'm giving away in the description of this video as well. I've got a sample pack and an ebook, which you can download for free. You just need to enter your email address and I'll send that stuff over to you. And as always, I will see you in the next video.